Hello and welcome to another meeting for Nature's the Answer, I guess you can say, and Monaf Creation and Mason Gleason, all very great individuals who produce content on YouTube and BitChute and all these other platforms and trying to get our presence out there, making presentations and doing a whole bunch of other things. And we want to share that with you, maybe some tips also that can maybe help you along your truth journey, of course. So, welcome to another meeting where we like to hold each other accountable and talk about the action steps we can take for the truth. As maybe individuals know, I've been working on a presentation. Mason has been putting out several presentations, which is fantastic. I reposted one of them on this channel, so feel free to check that out. And also, his links are in the description below, so is Monad's. And yeah, so we can get started here. I wanted to record this also because we have some resources like the one Mason shared. Uh, could you say his name? Because I can't say that name.
Yeah, it's Michael Tsarion.
Okay.
Tsarion is Tsarion.
Yeah. So, what does he produce typically? Like
So
content-wise?
he's an author, documentary filmmaker. He makes music and he has a podcast too. He's been around in the alternative research community for probably 20 or 30 years. I think he's been making stuff. So he's been around for a long. He's one of the pioneers of the modern day alternative research community, I would say.
Wow.
And the book I was mentioning before we started recording was his book on human origins. It's called Atlantis: Alien Visitation and Genetic Manipulation. Because I
Darn.
know Rod had mentioned to me before that he was really interested in human origins, so
Yeah,
he
I
so he came
see.
to mind.
This stuff it looks pretty in depth. I like it.
Yeah, and he's got a really good documentary called Architects of Control. That's just kind of about the whole modern day control system and breaking it down. Um, and I mean, yeah, he's got so much stuff. I mean, his information is so in depth, and he covers so many different topics too: astrotheology, tarot, psychic
That's where
vampirism.
Mark
I
Passio
mean,
comes
he
in. I could
right.
see.
I
I could
mean,
see definitely the
he's
connection.
he's really into philosophy too, specifically the German idealists, or specifically ones that he really enjoys, and he has a book on German idealism, and even um, so yeah, and he's got a podcast too, Unslaved. He
Well,
does with
may I
a
ask, what is German idealism?
um,
Is that like
I
regarding
it's
World War
not
II or no? Or
no
Aryans?
no, they go well a lot of so the German idealists, they go all the way back to like Friedrich Hegel, like all the way back to philosophers from like the 15th, 16th, 17th century. So pretty far back, um, all the way up to, what's his name? Martin Heidegger, who was more modern. He was around during World War II. Um, but yeah, so um,
Okay.
I'm not too familiar with the whole philosophy of idealism, so I probably couldn't give a good um, summary of what exactly it is, but
Yeah.
that's just something that I know from watching and reading a lot of his work. He mentions them frequently as inspirations of his.
Yeah. That's great. There definitely is a lot of ism words that you can research, and you'll just end up
Oh yeah,
in
oh
a
yeah,
vortex of
absolutely,
isms, realism
right.
and romanticism and
Hmm.
dark romanticism, all these things, and they all kind of come down to just displaying the truth in different ways, right?
Right.
So, and that's why poetry and all these different forms of literature perhaps so popular. But um, yeah, so I see astrotheology, all those. That's really good, and a lot of it also comes down to the slavery of the human condition, which we've been talking
Hmm.
about. So,
Right. And that's why he's got his name of his podcast. He does is Unslaved. So,
oh, okay, that's
which
great.
I think you have to pay actually a subscription to get access to all of it. But think it's only like $6, so it's not too expensive, like a monthly subscription fee.
So I know last time we left off this podcast with some action steps for like Andy, for example. I know Ronnie did some, thinking about his actions as well. He had some interactions with individuals where he had anger, right? He had to help that anger sort of seize within himself, right? I mean, because you don't want to project the same energy that's being projected onto you. And
Hmm.
David Icke also talks about that idea, right? He talks about love being the answer quite a numerous amount of times. And with that, when we see so much hate and fear within the universe, it probably isn't the best to project that against it if we're trying to fight against it. Uh, the truth is, we sort of just crowd it out by adding in the good, like we would say in integrative nutrition. So, I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with that because I don't know if I ever asked you that question. If you guys ever had to deal with that or if you had to resolve some anger within yourself, I think this would be a good starting ground just because that's where we left off last time. Is sort of this idea of anger and fear, right? And I wouldn't relate the two as one and the same, of course, but anger could be used for good or it could be used for bad. And even fear is there for a reason. But if you look at like our stress hormones, for example, we're constantly in fight or flight mode. So we're constantly in fear. And so in a way it's sort of being manipulated. It's sort of being pushed to an extreme that fear is natural and fear is of nature, but it's being pushed to an extreme that starts to rid of other things because it creates an imbalance, right? And a disharmony within
Right.
the body, within the mind, spirit, soul, whatever you
Mhm.
want to put it. And Monad of Creation has a good podcast, a lot about love and sovereignty and so forth, and just his first episodes, which I also encourage people to look at. I have a video talking about his podcast on the channel. Have that linked in the description. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that? You ever have to deal with fear or anger within yourself or among other people? And what do you think?
Y- Yeah, honestly, like I'll just talk about my personal life. I think it's pretty apparent what's happening, like in the external manifestation, like in the aggregate, with society, being afraid of the flu, being afraid of race wars and artificial race wars and everything like that. But I think like uh, on the small scale, when you speak truth to like family members, for instance, or friends, some of the topics, the darker aspects of of truth, typically turn people off so quickly. And instead of assessing what's frightening them or triggering them, and then just sort of staying grounded in like in a 0 point space, like they just go to straight to a pole, um, which is typically fear, and then that fear can either turn into uh, like a zeal for learning about what is frightening them, or it can just totally destroy someone.
Yeah.
So it's sort of weird thing to encounter sometimes, like when you're just trying to relay knowledge, and it's like chill, you're just like, hey, this is a cool thing, and then an individual could just be like, oh, you're just fear mongering, like stop it, that's bad, you're bad. I'm like, whoa, what just happened? It's like
Right.
what's going
We're
on?
just asking
I'm just
questions.
telling you something. So I understand, like it's definitely depends on someone's level of perception, not even level of perception, just what their worldview is to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a really complex thing when you're just speaking about like dark truths about the world, but obviously on the global stage, like the division and
Hmm.
the supposed plague and all that.
You're
So
so right. There's a personal level. There's a greater level to that, which includes many different individuals. There's what fear can become. You're so right. There's different levels to which we can look at all those. But I also like to look at a child here, right? Like if a child were to just ask a question, they're innocent. They're just asking a question genuinely out of their heart. Their mind is telling them so. They're imaginative. They're free, more free than perhaps later in life when they get into this system more and more. But how much trouble does that individual get the first time around? That can impact them for life. Don't ask questions. Don't question authority and so forth. Um, and those are the sort of the messages that could be going to certain children. But if you think about it, some of them could just be questioning, and there's nothing wrong with that. They probably
Mhm.
should. I think a lot of children naturally question um, when they come into this life, because there's so much mystery and there's so much that's already been created. There's so much that's already present, that their form of presence coming into that world is like, what is this? And it's a journey, it's an exploration. But without asking the questions, it doesn't become that. And without embracing that it is a journey or a mystery, then it isn't. You feel less meaningful. And I think a lot of individuals nowadays, they feel depressed, they have anxiety and so forth. And you're talking a younger population. I think there's a great correlation there with a lack of destiny, a lack of journey, a lack of destination.
Mm-hmm.
Where if they have that drive in them, they wouldn't have those problems. And of course, it's the food supply too, it's the environments that surround it. But that's what I'm saying, is they're affecting that prime ability to question
Yeah.
at the end of the day, to see the truth that is all around us present. As
Right.
simple as it may be, the complexities are sort of in our own mind. The barriers are that of which we created. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Mason?
Um, so, in terms of dealing with anger and fear, in myself and in others, personally, I struggled with anger in myself for a while when first understanding the situation of the world, and just when I really kind of turned on and became a truth seeker myself. I really got mad because, as most of us probably do at first, at least, when you figure out that pretty much everything you've been told about the world and how it works is lies, then it's really upsetting. So I had to deal with that. And in terms of with other people, I don't find that a lot of other people get mad necessarily with me whenever I'm trying to, pose questions to them or just get them to open their minds to a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the stuff that we talk about. But I definitely can see fear uh, from a lot of people that I talk to. They're like, oh, he's talking about this. I don't want to like what
Yes.
like this is weird stuff or conspiracy stuff, or I don't want to talk about this stuff
Right.
or this, because it's challenging their worldview, so it makes
Yeah.
them uncomfortable.
You're right. And I think maybe perhaps you can say the anger comes from the fear, and that's what makes
Mhm.
the anger seem bad, even though it's technically the fear, right?
Right.
So the fear is then the root of that
Hmm.
situation of anger. But every situation has a different expression for
Right.
which, where's the intention, essentially, right?
Hmm.
Because somebody could say something, but where are their intentions? So that's what I'm
Right.
saying, is like they can express anger, but is that out
Uh-huh.
of fear or is that out of love?
Yeah.
And there's
And
actually, it could actually be either one.
yeah, and my anger initially, personally, was definitely out of fear because a lot of it was, like, how bad is it really? If I keep learning more and more, like, is it just gonna freak me out even more? How basically enslaved the world is. But, as
Mm-hmm.
I learned more, I actually became more courageous. So the fear wasn't as strong or didn't have as strong of a hold over me. So then I've also, at the same time, kind of calmed down a little bit and not been as angry and been able to, um, be more collected with my thoughts, and just generally calm. Because yeah, the part of something I was fearful about in terms of speaking publicly, making presentations, and just putting information out was, I was afraid that I would just get mad doing them, and then people would watch them and think, oh, there's just this crazy asshole just screaming about random shit. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
the hell is he on about? But I've actually found that I don't really have that problem, which really kind of surprised me. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and perhaps, different audiences, different situations, different topics. Depends on the feel, the mood, right? You get the vibe, and when you're with
right.
certain people, you know how to react, you know how
Mhm.
to present yourself, for example. And what you're saying too with like being calm, I just want to mention sort of like this embrace, right? Are you embracing the what everybody else is feeling, because there's nothing necessarily that you can do about it. If
Mhm.
they feel a certain way, you can try to help them in a way, but they themselves have to fix themselves. So
Right.
in a way, there's a level of embracing here, and
Mhm.
that's why a lot of people stress, presence and being present with yourself, to try to just take everything in. But that doesn't mean you can't do anything about it, because New Age philosophy, you just you know you basically just don't really do anything about it. That's not necessarily true. You can be present and you could still take action. You can have inaction and you can have action. Inaction is still technically an action.
Right.
And the Tao talks about this, and it's all about irony. And yet some people want to conclude and say, well, the whole book is about inaction. Did you not realize the whole book is about irony? The whole idea of it is that leaders and people who, seek power should not actually press that power. They have no right to do so. And that individuals should perhaps not disturb the environment in the natural way, which is called the Tao. Uh, Otherwise karma, or there's going to be some repercussions to that. So there's different ways we can look at this, but I know Andy just joined, and we were talking about you earlier. It's not why we mentioned this topic, but I wanted to get everybody's perspective basically on anger, and I know that we basically talked about that last time with you, so we don't have to talk about that. Basically, we came up with some action steps last time, so I actually wouldn't mind asking you, Andy, if you have basically talked to your mom recently, or if you've considered anything that we talked about to try and maybe appeal in an individual level.
I actually, hey, what's up, boys?
How you
What up,
doing,
man?
man?
How are you doing?
Hanging in there. Been having a tough time lately, but kind of snapping out of it lately.
Yeah. And I also want to hear your thoughts and everything else, of course. If you have any other topics that you want to mention, I'll make sure we can talk about it.
Okay, yeah. But you just asked about my mom. I
Right.
actually did reach out to her. I basically forgave her for a lot of the real fucked up shit that she said to me. I actually went hiking with her yesterday, but man, actually communicating with her when I'm with her is, I just want to fucking rip my hair out. Good thing I don't have any, but
Yeah.
it's like we're hiking yesterday, and she's like, "Oh, did you see what happened with the Patriots?" Because I used to be a big sports fan, and my whole family's like all into sports and shit. And me now, it's like I literally can't watch it, especially with this whole COVID climate. Like, I just can't pretend like any of this is normal, you know? And so she goes, "Oh, did you see what happened with the Patriots?" And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, it's a total fucking joke. And I was like, pretty much like that presidential debate we just had. And I was like, yeah, you got one guy with dementia who sniffs little girls, and the other guy with close ties to Epstein. And my mom's like, "What? He doesn't sniff little girls, and he doesn't have dementia. He has a stutter." And I'm just like, I just in my head, I'm like, oh god, there'll be no getting through.
Yeah, sometimes
Right.
you do have to just kind of learn to live with it in a way, which is kind of not good to say, but it's something I think a
Yeah,
lot of us have to deal with, and for good reason, for the fact
so
that they'll,
frustrating, bro.
yeah, well, how many presidential elections has she gone through in her life, and I don't know. I mean, you have to question really her upbringing too, right?
I know. Well, the thing is, my grandmother, she just moved into my parents' house. She's 89, and she is like a staunch Democrat, and she watches CNN and MSNBC like all fucking day. My grandmother does. And I could see how my mom sort of became indoctrinated into that too, you know? So I understand it, but it's just like, at what
Yeah.
fucking point, you know? Especially with everything going on now, you know, the censorship and the smear campaigns of real doctors that speak out against this shit. And
Well,
I try to point that out.
yeah, let me
And
ask you though, have you talked about, with them about like natural rights and in natural law, just because those are universal concepts that regardless of whatever you think
right.
now and regardless of whatever they think politically, these are things you can talk about, and you're not talking about it directly, so it doesn't make it agitated.
Yeah, I haven't really, because I mean our relationship has been so tumultuous this year, and like
Okay.
me forgiving her was just this sort of recent development where it was like about a month ago where I was just like, you know, because my mom's an alcoholic and addiction runs in our family, and
Okay.
um, it's like I was thinking in my whole process of my thought process of actually forgiving her, I was like, you know, if I let this continue and I just dig my heels in and, you know, don't reach out or communicate with her, it's like, what are the chances that she might ever try and heal or get better from her drinking, you know? So part of it, me forgiving her, was out of compassion, you know?
Yeah, well, if you're gonna change anything,
Really,
you have to start with that. I mean,
yeah,
people have to
I know.
start with forgiveness and love. It's the only way that you can, right? Like an open heart is an open mind, is the phrase. So it has to
Yep.
start at that level, which is why whenever we mention bringing like a smoothie, as crazy as it sounded, with cocoa, as something that enhances mood and boosts that love. So I don't know if you've done that yet, or if you still considering doing it.
Um, I haven't done it. It would be something I would consider, but my mom, health wise, is, you know, she actually does eat well. She makes smoothies on her own, stuff like that. But
A common
it
problem with
just,
alcoholics is that oftentimes they're just
she's,
looking for something to drink, right? So
yeah,
I'm saying like a smoothie might actually help that, and also just straight up water or other drinks that you introduce to her. So it not only helps with
Tea or
opening
something like
up her
that.
heart, but if sorry, what was that, Mason?
I was just saying tea also is another
Yeah,
great thing.
yeah, for sure. Anything with hot water over it becomes tea essentially. Take
Yeah.
anything in
but that's
nature.
what that's kind of what I'm saying though, is that she's
You
kind
can make
of,
your own hot chocolate even with some raw
yeah.
cacao.
Yeah.
But she's already kind of healthy in that regard. Like I said, she does smoothies every morning and she hikes and stuff, but mentally she's just a fucking mess, dude.
Mm.
Just locked into this brainwashed state, and it's like, man, you know, it's just frustrating because, you know, she always says, "Oh yeah, you know, you could talk to me about anything. You could talk to me about anything." And it's like, well, when I try to bring up some of these things,
Mm.
you know, she reacts with her emotions all the time, like most people, right? And
Perhaps
she's
you want to
Yeah.
just,
try the more universal approach, though, since you haven't tried it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Just because you
yeah,
want to experiment and see. And also, if you, I don't know, maybe, obviously you would know best, but the right circumstances to do it too. I don't
right,
know if she watches TV more than she goes outside, but I mean, when she's hiking and stuff, that should at least help clear her mind a little bit from everything that's going on. Because, I mean, we know that we're being bombarded with it, um, through television and so forth. Um, if you can also just mute your mic sometimes when, sorry,
oh yeah, no
just because
problem.
there's background noise. I don't know how that'll affect the recording. That's why I'm saying it, but I don't want to be rude. I'm sorry. Um, but I'm just saying. So there's different environments, and I would hope that going outside and doing other things would help. Getting away from everything. But if it doesn't, um, at least she's still doing those things with you, and that's good. As long as you guys can just be close together, what does it matter everything else that goes on in the world? Um, I think you should fix personal relationships first before anything else. It shouldn't matter what else is going on in the world, and you can tell her that. right? Like
I
another
agree.
universal truth is like, I don't want to talk about politics right now because what does it have to do with my life right here, right now? I mean, this is the whole point
Mm,
why we believe in what we believe, right? Because we want to just
Mhm.
simply live our lives. So it
Yep.
goes along with what we're saying, and again, we're bringing up this idea non-invasively and without directly putting it out. We sort of are doing it indirectly by saying, well, we don't need to talk about this. What does it matter? But I know that, if you're bombarded with it and you see it everywhere, it's like you start to want to just like, I want to go at it. But I'm just saying, like, when it comes to like family and so forth, I think the bond is more important than anything, and you shouldn't let the world get you too upset, which is something I probably shouldn't say because obviously we all are affected by it and we all feel that energy and we
no,
all
I'm right
want the
there with
great
you, Cory.
change.
I think you're right. Honestly, it's gonna be new. It's gonna be different going forward because I feel like the old. I mean, it's not gonna be across the board in any sense. Everybody's gonna have a different perspective, but I feel like the majority of like the natural law anarchist truthers were, I mean, it's true, right? It's true that the more people who are speaking, with their voice or with text, there's going to be more change. At the same time, like I think there's a whole unseen energetic realm to it, where people also make an impact with small actions. And then also like even if you just fix families, like imagine if family units were better and like relationships were better to begin with, people probably wouldn't be arguing over dialectics and anyway. So it's like it's so much more. I feel like it's so much more complex and so many different moving parts than
Right.
just
Mhm.
just total
Just
collapsitarian, destroy it all, let's start a new world type.
yeah. At the end of the day,
Everybody
you
needs
might not even want to talk to her about natural law. You might just want
right.
to steer her away from politics.
Hmm.
Yeah.
In general, because what does it matter? Okay, if she's gonna vote for Biden, like, is that really gonna bother us? I mean, we know that, this voting system is sort of fraudulent, anyways. We know that this whole system, as long as you're playing their games, yeah, you're feeding into it. But her oneself, is that gonna make all the difference? It does make some difference, but is she going to be the one to also inspire others to be the change? Then that's a big question. Like if she's the maven in the family, right, the one who spreads the word about everything, then perhaps yeah, you still want to influence her in some of the ideas, but you still want to build a relationship with her either way. You see what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree that um, obviously my relationship with her is important to me, but my whole family, the whole extended family I have, is just a giant echo chamber of ignorance.
Mm.
Um, all statists, they're all, Democrat, and it's they're literally, you can't even really have a conversation with them. So it's
The left
it's just
side is much
incredibly
harder.
difficult to communicate.
Yeah, the left side is much harder to, at least in today's political scape, as of 2020,
Mhm.
it,
Yeah.
it's much harder to appeal to that crowd only because you just see that there's a lot more common sense on the right. Just objectively speaking, I mean, just the way Trump speaks
Exactly.
is not like a robot per se. He's not using psychological strategies, for example, like in the debate, where he's constantly just looking at the camera, like, I need you Americans, and you got to think about all the people dying, because that's what Biden did constantly. And I could just
Mhm.
tell there's psychological manipulations. And he also couldn't look at Trump at all, which means he was scared internally.
There's something going on there, dude. I'm telling you. I
Yeah,
don't know
he
what it
had
is, but
wires on
there's
and all this other
something, dude.
stuff.
When he
Mhm.
wasn't looking at Trump once in the eyes, dude, I don't know. There's something to that. I don't know what it is, but
Well,
that's
he's
weird.
used to the traditional political landscape where they don't have that human interaction. Like they're so denatured that they're so off the end. Whereas
Yeah,
Trump, at
dude.
least by his simple presence of being more of a human, that actually changes some energies in the world. That changes a
It
lot of
does.
things that are going on, regardless of what he says, regardless of what he even does. Just that simple use of
Mhm.
human expression makes a difference
I
because that's
mean,
how denatured we are in the current reality. Where if
Yeah,
you
right.
yeah.
have
I
somebody
mean,
who has any charismatic energy,
yeah.
it's going to ripple through the world.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I think he's, became president and got such a huge following is just because of that. Because so
Right.
many politicians, like you said, are so robotic and just have their pre-planned slogans and
Yeah,
things
but
they're going to say.
the problem
So
is it's also more dangerous though now because people think he's more like them, and that's why people vote these people into office. Is they
right.
think, oh, they're
Right.
human beings.
Obviously, Trump isn't some
Hold up.
savior.
Go ahead.
So you guys think he became president, or that he's there for a reason, that he was selected?
It doesn't matter.
Right?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
He's
the great divider.
He's
the great divider.
I was just bringing up the point that what Cory was saying, how he's
Well,
a lot
again,
more human
Andy,
than your
so like
typical
I'll catch you right there.
politician.
Yeah, I would agree.
Is why he got such a big following, is because people couldn't notice. People were able to notice that about him.
Andy, I just want you to
Yeah.
notice, like, I'm not pointing out what's wrong with him, but I'm pointing out what's right. And even though we technically know that there's a lot of things that are wrong, I'm pointing out what is right. And I just want you to notice your approach sometimes to certain things, right? Like saying he's the great divider, like it's okay. You know, obviously, I think we can probably all agree with that. But it's I'm not saying it's too controversial or whatnot. But if you would have mentioned that, you know, to your mom, for example, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you would say that, but you know, like you got to catch yourself. Is what I'm saying. Is like if you got to make sure that the words that you're saying are conscious. Like, and this goes for everybody, of course, right? Because this is a podcast. So when I say this, I'm not just talking about you, just for the record. Okay, like I'm saying this for anybody. You know, when we say things unconsciously, we're gonna get reactions that we probably don't necessarily want because we're not in full control of ourselves.
Right.
And so just be careful is what I'm saying, right? Think before acting, think before saying, to just take a step back every so now and then, because if they get you fired up or they are the ones that are going at things unconsciously, be the better person and be conscious of your actions and what's happening, right? Because just look back at some of the ancient ideas. Sorry, because you said idealism before. So if you look at like the Buddha, for example, right? I mean, some of these individuals, they were supposed, right, in history, but psychologically this makes sense. They were outcasted from the rest of the world. They were outsiders, totally not in with society. But then once they came out of that area and started moving toward the city, they started talking to people, they were suddenly super popular. The Buddha didn't have to say much, right? Jesus didn't have to say much, because their simple presence and their simple being of being that outsider was enough to create that change. People felt the energy. And what I'm saying is that sometimes saying less matters more than saying more. And so the Buddha often talked about, right, patience and meditation, all that. And it's just important to learn from those case examples, which apply to a lot of different ancients, of course, not just him, but in the fact that by representing truth, truth is already all around us. So all you got to do is sort of reflect anger and all the negative forces of the world back at itself. Not that you have to necessarily identify it, even though that helps in certain situations, but that you just let it happen reflectively. Not that you let it happen means you do nothing, because that's obviously New Age philosophy, but that you reflect it back and you still have some sort of anticipation because you're a human. And like when I talk about this whole idea of being human with politics, it's something that isn't really talked about that much, but it really plays a big part. So I mentioned Trump is more human, which is why he's more liked. Well, we can be more human because we're more conscious of our actions. We can be more human because we have more to say on certain things, and we're not just taking what is coming to us. Essentially, we're expressing ourselves more, our human nature, our free will.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
it's the random component and the deterministic component combined. And boom, you got the truth, right? Because that's in the middle. That's natural law, and that's free will, or nature's the answer, right? And I represent this in the presentation as well. But essentially, what I'm saying is, you know, we got to think differently about different situations, again, if we want different results. So I don't know what you think about that.
I'm in total agreement, man, because I mean that's literally the understanding I've come to. And I think the best way to say it in one sentence is living in the world, not of it. But obviously you have to like build upon that. I'm like, what's your mission, or like what you think, or like what actions are you taking, but still the truth remains, live in the world, not of it. And by that, like to me, that straight up means if people are refusing truth outright and there's not much you can do about it, and you understand the dynamic at play that they're not going to be receptive to it, at least not yet, um, don't kill yourself over it.
Yeah.
You know,
So let me
like
ask
I
you.
don't think that helps. I don't think that helps anybody. I mean, I'll be honest. Sometimes when speakers uh, get really angry with an audience, that does serve a purpose. Everything serves a purpose. But I think like for a personal growth, if you want to stay balanced and sane, sometimes I mean getting unrighteously angry or letting it destroy you. Uh, I don't think it's worth it. You know, I think you can tell the truth and learn how to let people be ignorantes. So
Hmm. Be reflective of the truth, right? Which can sometimes be cause chaos and can sometimes be awakening. So you are a living example of truth, in other words. And so, Andy, I have a question. Based on all that, I mean, first of all, I can get your thoughts. I mean, that's essential. But how important is it for you to really convince your mother about everything that's happening politically? Is it really that much of a concern, based on what we've been talking about as well?
It's actually not. I've actually have reflected on that a lot. Just considering picking my battles, and I guess with my family, it's not one that is going to be very fruitful, and there just isn't that level of open mindedness, or many people in my family haven't done that introspective work that I've done, and that's really required to be receptive to this kind of information. So
And how did you start?
more I
How did you
more I
start to
interact.
awaken?
What's that?
How did you start to awaken up?
For me, it was the war on drugs. It was my experiences with my addiction, and
Okay. And for them, it hasn't woke them
um,
up?
no,
Okay.
no,
Even though
not even a little. Because
you shared your story with them too, right?
yeah, they know everything about my story. So it's like,
This is the problem too. See, I have family in New York, right? My grandfather had a oxygen machine because of how much drinking he did and how much cigarettes and stuff, right? And they
mhm.
yet my family in New York still drinks heavy and does cigarettes. It's like they haven't
Mm,
learned from even personal experience
Mm-hmm.
what
right.
has gone on. And is your mother in a more city-like area, or I mean, I'm just
We're
wondering. Okay.
we're we're in a real rural area. There's
Okay.
like 10,000 people, and um, yeah, I would agree. I mean, seeing two, I mean, my brother was a bad drug addict as well, and um, it's addiction's really pervasive where we live, in the Monadnock area, like right on the Mass New Hampshire border, and um, like I said, she's an alcoholic, and um, I actually carry some guilt because I feel like my addiction and my problems sort of exacerbated her condition, and but she is still in that state of denial where she doesn't think she has a problem. So
Okay.
it's
Well,
like,
first of all, don't feel guilt. You're doing good, man. You're obviously just trying to get out.
thanks,
Your
man.
intentions are true, and that matters. We talked about intentions, I think, before
They
you
really
were here.
are. It's just
But
my approach isn't,
okay, but that's
need
okay, right?
need
I
some
mean,
work.
I was
But
talking with Mana before. Like sometimes I'm trying to deliver my information and so forth, right? And my intentions are clear. Like I don't want to sell anybody or anything or whatever. But sometimes the way it's delivered can come across as different, and I have to try to get over that and deliver it in different ways. I'm saying like about nature's the answer, for example, right? Like I don't want people to think that I'm trying to sell them anything or that like this is the only solution, blah blah blah. Now, is it the only solution? It's the only one that I see viable as of the current day and of the for the nature of what it actually stands for. But that's just objectively speaking. And when I feel passionate about this, when I know that something is going to work, I'm going to share it. And it's not out of personal interest. I'm making no money off of this. So, I mean, I try to make it clear my intentions are, and this presentation is the whole reason why it's done is to kind of clear up confusion and all this other stuff that I feel like is present, but, and also for the future, for, you know, sake of individuals who want to learn and so forth. But what I'm saying is, you know, intentions are there, and that matters most. What will come with the intentions through time, we will teach ourselves. And, you know, I'm assuming you're probably teaching yourself a lot, right? How much have you gone through in just the last year?
A lot, man.
Yeah. So, and I can tell, right? So this is
It's
what I'm saying. So
yeah.
just have faith in yourself. Keep your head high, and you'll be fine. You clearly know what's going on. But like plant those seeds, I think, to conclude sort of on
Yeah.
your family situation. Plant the seeds, but you haven't done so yet with universal truths. And if you get them there, it's really hard for them to sort of debate you on that. There was somebody at a libertarian club who challenged me recently, and he's like, "Oh, well, I can't live in a world without government, blah blah blah." I really just brought up to himself human rights and simple things that he really couldn't deny. He didn't even know himself. So it really was difficult for him to come back at all. And when you do that, I mean, you're simply speaking on behalf of what is present. Instead of saying, well, oh, okay, COVID is a hoax and this presidential election is a hoax, that stuff is not present within the universe as objective truths. So it can be semantics and arguing and debating all day long. So if you stick to something that is universal, it's something that is likely always going to be in the back of their mind if it's actually true. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So planting the seeds, the most effective planting seed method you can do is delivering universal truths. And that's sort of like the whole idea here, right, with natural law and everything. It's something that isn't really known within much of society, but effective as it is, it's just speaking on behalf of everything we're going through. So regardless of who you run into, you're going to run into different people at different times. This will work for everybody. And that's going to be then key if we're going to help everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually had what I thought was kind of a breakthrough. I went over to my parents for dinner, and after I had a podcast with Ronnie, the last one I did, we were talking about Max Gerson and how he had a cure for cancer 100 years ago, and we were talking about coffee enemas and these, just changing your diet and eating more plants. So he put me on to this documentary called The Food Cure. And I have an uncle right now who's really sick. He's got some brain tumors, and he's just really having a hard time. And when I helped my parents move my grandmother into the house, my aunt was there, and I was talking to her all about this documentary because they were just beyond frustrated with the opinions they've received and the kind of treatments they're trying to put them into. And so I was telling my aunt about this documentary, The Food Cure, where I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it follows like 6 people who have cancer. There's like a 6-month-old boy, and there's like 70-year-olds, and basically by completely changing their diet, going to a completely vegan diet, combined with coffee enemas, and it basically completely healed these people. I think there were 2 of them that had died, but they weren't as like strict on the protocol. So I was telling my mom about this, and and that sort of transitioned into like a brief disagreement about vaccines. But I almost felt like I said, as I was telling my parents about that, it kind of ended up transitioning into a discussion about vaccines. And then my grandmother was like, she's like, I just trust my doctor. He won't give me anything that would hurt me. And I was like, ma'am, I was like, do you know what's in a vaccine? And
This is
she's like,
why I don't personally, I don't watch videos or even read articles that much anymore. It's because
yeah,
I literally, every time I'm in a conversation with somebody, I'm thinking, how do I convey to them universal truths, something that they can agree on,
yeah.
based on knowledge that they know or practical utilization. So, yeah, I'm
But
just
what, hold
saying
on,
you
Corey,
can
hold
put
on, hold
experiment
on,
with that.
hold
Yeah,
on,
go
Corey.
ahead, go ahead.
But what I was, just let me finish my thought on it. So what I was saying was that I actually had my mom agree to like set up a time for us to actually watch a documentary. I don't know if you guys have heard or seen, but it's called The Act. It's about the 1986 Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, and it's the same guy, Dr. Andy Wakefield, who made the first documentary Vaxxed. And
Yeah.
she actually agreed to watch this with me. So I was kind of saying that I felt like I had a brief breakthrough in that she at least agreed she'd watch it. So it
That's
was
cool.
like I was feeling pretty hopeful about that, but
Yeah.
you know, I just think that for me, it's probably not as important to get through to her. It would be nice because I feel like if she woke up to some of these things, that
Yeah.
she would
I
probably
think
support me emotionally and
intrinsically,
mentally a little better.
since they're our
But
family, we want them to be on the same page. You know what I mean? It's like we
yeah,
want
it's out
them
of
to feel
love,
better.
man.
Right.
It's out of
Exactly.
love. I don't want
Exactly.
them to be scared and,
And you tell them
have all
that
this
too.
fear.
You tell them that then. You know what I mean? Because that's universal. Just what you said right now.
I
Love and fear.
know.
Another universal idea. So yeah, and basically we can use videos and articles to bridge our way to universal truths. But
Yeah.
that's the end goal though. There is the universal truths
Yeah.
because that's where we achieve wisdom. It's coming to these general understandings that can be applied almost anywhere at any time. So yeah, man, that's great. That's fantastic that you're doing that, and that's at
So
least a step, man, dude. So
yeah, I mean, I'm in a much better position with her than I was, 2 months ago, where it was
that's
literally,
progress.
yeah. I mean, I almost thought for a minute, I was like, wow, I'm never going to have a relationship with my mother because, some of the shit that she said to me,
Gotta have faith.
basically like, oh, you don't deserve love because of all your conspiracy theories and your hatred for our government. I'm like, what? You
You
know?
know, you know what happened, Andy? Uh, there, do an experiment. Do some science, okay? Um,
Okay, buddy.
do this. Do this. So, for I don't know, like 2 or 3 days, maybe a week if you want. Don't talk about anything truth related, and just be yourself. And guess what? When things upset them, you know it's nonsense. So you're going to be the happy one in the room, and they're going to start to go, "Oh, why isn't Andy freaking out?" Also, like, so just, I don't know. Maybe I'm not saying do that all the time. Like, continue to try to wake them up if you want. But what I'm saying is, some people, when the world is falling apart and everybody's going insane, and you're the only one that has a calm head,
Mm-hmm.
that enough. Them seeing you
Yes.
keep your stuff together, keep your shit together, quite frankly, and like everybody else is yelling and screaming and probably crying in some cases.
Yeah.
They're like, "What is
They'll
he
look
on
up to
about?"
you.
Like, what is that? I want to know about that. And then if maybe they'll ask you and be like, "Is this because you
Yeah.
know the truth, Andy?" And it's like, "Well, yeah,
Andy,
yeah."
you're the younger person. You're the son. She will look up to you. I'd say, if you keep doing what you're doing, and you impress her, you surprise her with some of these truths that if she knows are also inherent. You know what I mean? It's sort of something. It's like, wow, I'm proud of my son, but it's like also as she gets older, she's gonna really seek that youth, and it's gonna mean more to her. You know what I mean? As people go through not just midlife crisis, but like toward the later ends of their life, they start to look back at more things. So always have faith is what I'm trying to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep going
Yeah, I
at what you're
appreciate
doing.
that.
Yeah, you'll.
Yeah, I will. It's just,
It's the part
whew,
of the process,
it's
man.
been a rough couple
Honestly.
months.
Yeah.
I know.
It's
I mean, because
it.
you guys were a couple years ahead of me on this waking up shit,
It doesn't
and I'm
matter.
like,
Forget that.
no, I know, but I'm just saying it's a process.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's like emotional. It's a bit of a roller coaster, and I'm just like
Mhm.
trying to. I just rack my brain with trying to find those little bridges.
Mhm.
How do I build those bridges? And it's like,
Well, to think that it wasn't hard for me either would be, an understatement or whatever you call it.
Right.
It's just because dude, you don't know, but I mean, I've had times where I cried like insane. You know, it's just because breaking those barriers, number one, is difficult within itself, and then waking up to a reality that you haven't realized you've been living for the past years is another, or anything related to wakening up requires some sort of, you know not regret necessarily. That's, something we can control through time, but it's something that we just have to. It comes with some process, right? But that's there to teach us. It's all there to teach us and become more emotionally stable
It's
at the end of
true.
the day. So we have some instabilities to become stable. It's just like learning to walk as a child. I like to use the child symbologies or whatever, but uh, you can learn a lot from the early and later stages of life, essentially, and that's why I talk about it. But thank you, Andy. Look, just for sharing what you had to share is a lot within itself. So I mean, I appreciate it, and it'll help people too. Keep that in mind. Everything that you're saying right now is helping other people.
Yes.
There's somebody on my YouTube. If you don't mind, I can give a shout out to them. But Andy, is there anything else that you want to talk about with that?
I don't think so. It's just I actually do feel better. Thanks for you guys being there and being authentic and
No problem.
lending an ear, because since I've gotten into this community with you guys, it's definitely helped, because just genuine human beings that are supporting each other and like-minded and trying to find a better way of doing things and existing in the world. And it's just really refreshing, and I am grateful for all you guys, because man, it's been rough. You feeling like that feeling of being alone in this, and there's a lot of people out there that are in the truth movement, but um when you don't know them personally in any way, it's you kind of tend to feel alone, and
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't feel so alone anymore. So I appreciate all you guys, and
Appreciate you,
um,
man.
yeah, I underestimate it a lot, honestly, but it's amazing what we have already as it is. And I just keep looking up. I keep looking for a bigger picture. I mean, I'm always like, we can do more, we can do more, and I think, if we keep going at it, we will achieve that more, and especially through time. As Mark Pastor said, it's a slow race, but we'll
Yeah.
get there. And when he says that, I think it's very symbolic for myself, because I like to push myself sometimes, and maybe you guys are the same way, especially even just among talking to family members. But um, we tend to push ourselves a lot, but we have to keep in mind that we don't have to go that crazy. But it
Yeah.
shows that the amount of passion, it shows the amount of care that we have, and so
Yes.
it's good that we do express that to an extent. So thank you, Andy, for all that.
Yeah, thanks for your authenticity, Andy. That's key, man. Because some people, like in your situation, they won't express themselves and it bottles up, and that's not good. So for you to even like say it out loud is actually like super good,
Yeah,
honestly.
and we might do live streams for this later on, maybe, because we were thinking about Twitch. So if you ever would be cool with that, Andy, we can do like live streams or whatever. Um, but
yeah, I'm down for more, man.
like, for example,
I want to get another podcast going.
there's somebody that listens to a lot of this stuff on my channel, and he makes like some really good comments. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna read it here for us.
Sure.
And like, if we had a live stream going, we would be able to get comments too. So I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
that's live streaming is great for that.
yeah, and then you can link it to your Instagram or whatever, and we can just get everything live. That would be a really good idea. So
I guess brand new Tube has live streaming.
I would probably use Twitch though, or I could use Restream and it could stream like all
Twitch, yeah.
platforms at once. But Twitch, because I know certain contacts and people can host me too, so I think Twitch might be a good outset. But in case people are wondering, it's Cuckoo TV, twitch.tv/Cuckoo TV. So, because that's my gaming channel. So, the comment on these videos, there's this guy, his YouTube channel name is Next Phase of Evolution. And he says eventually he might produce content as well. He's been paying attention to everything that's been going on.
He's commented on all of my presentations, I think, so far, actually.
Yeah. So he's a really cool dude. I just want to give a shout out to him because he deserves it. I don't really get any comments on my videos, so for him to leave a comment, I really appreciate it. He says, my tribe, and he said, my heart goes out to Andy. I feel your pain. Your strength is commendable. The universe is giving you opportunities for you to prove your true potential. Great pain precedes every new birth, the birth of a healer. Maintain resilience, and your better form will burst forth like a butterfly. I'm sending you love and positive vibes.
Wow, that's great,
I
man.
know.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
Holy shit.
And
I
that's
feel
just-
better already.
Yeah, and that's just one timestamp.
That's how I feel, honestly. That's how I feel. You
It was
know?
worded really well.
Very, very well. Because I feel like all the trauma that I've experienced and been through, I mean,
That's not my Twitch, Monad.
it's not in short supply in society, and I feel like because of how much I do care about other people and a better world, like I really feel like I could bring value, you know, and help people heal. That's what I want to do, you know.
Yo,
Because
that's awesome.
you know, if we can have people, I mean, you have to heal first before you can even think about like healing your worldview. You have to heal yourself personally. You know, that was the journey I had to go through. And I don't see it being any different for anyone else. So it's like
For every human being, yeah.
Well, I want to hear from
if we're
Mason,
going to
too.
turn the tide on this thing, if we're going to turn the tide, we have to help heal. We have to help people heal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying, right? Heal
yeah.
the system inside out, just like the body, and that's why I'm proposing this whole like movement thing. And what I hope to do, Andy, like you talked about family, right? Is I hope to get to the families of those who have military, those who are upper in the pyramid, because the people themselves that are in that upper status of the pyramid, they have families too, and they often are working for their families, and those families are going to be more open-minded to this knowledge than them themselves, because they're not going to want to risk losing their job or whatever. But if everybody disintegrates at once and this becomes a common, knowledge is spread around the workplace, and family members are starting to like create a conversation, the system will heal itself inside out. If there's knowledge being brought to the families of those individuals and it's being spread through the workplace. So that's why like I talk about that through this movement, right? Like that's my inside out healing methodology. But
that's great.
Mason, I want to hear your thoughts, dude, on everything, and I also want to hear from you what you're working on lately.
Yeah, well, first I just want to touch on what Andy was saying about first healing ourselves. That's definitely the key, is to, heal our. I mean, that was the last presentation that I just put out. It was titled "Only You Can Save Yourself," and it was about doing the shadow work and doing that inner work to heal ourselves, and because that's ultimately the way that we can help others around us, is by first helping ourselves. And as far as family goes, last time we had this meeting, you were suggesting to me, I was talking about some of my struggles with, getting through to family and helping them open their minds and stuff. And you suggested, uh, actually going over to and showing my family, like my parents and grandparents, how to make smoothies. And I actually did end up doing that. And now I've got, at least I know my mom and my grandma on drinking smoothies. My grandfather and my dad are they're a little more hard-headed, so still got to do some work with them. But I went over there, I brought a bunch of some frozen blueberries,
Nice.
some cocoa, just brought a bunch of different ingredients. I basically just brought a whole plethora of stuff over, and showed them, like, you can do any different kind of combination that you want, really. You can get creative with it, get different stuff that you like. And um, like I took hemp seeds, chia seeds, just all different kinds of stuff,
Great.
and just showed them, basically introduced them to a lot of stuff they never even heard of, So, but since then, like I said, mainly my mom and grandma, they've like my mom, I know, at least, has been drinking smoothies every morning now for breakfast. And she says she's definitely can tell a difference, and she's feeling better. And I can tell too, because I try to go over and visit them at least once a week if I'm able to. And even just after a few weeks, I can kind of tell the difference in her attitude, and she seems like she's feeling better. So yeah, so uh, that really helped me to
Awesome.
keep at it and take an action. And I think starting with family too is really important, because that's who, at least generally speaking, that's who a lot of people, their closest relationships are to, is their family members. So starting there, and then who knows who your family members, maybe they go to work, or when they're out and about, they could bring up some of these topics you talk to them about to other people. So you never know how it will ripple out. Um, but one thing that I kind of struggle with, though, too, is, for some reason, I kind of struggle sometimes with speaking to my family about some of this stuff. Like, I feel more comfortable just talking to strangers about it. And I guess part of that's probably just some fear of judgment from family, because you care about how they think of you more than strangers do. Um, so that's one of the things that I struggle with most when it comes to family. But as time has gone on, though, I've gotten more comfortable with it. And I've also found that sticking to the more universal basic truths,
Mm-hmm.
like rights, natural law, that kind of stuff, like you were mentioning earlier, Cory, I found that they're a lot more receptive to that kind of stuff. Or as much as, because I would struggle where I would bring up stuff about pedophilia and politics and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And when people
Touchy.
are totally just uneducated, then, and you just throw that at them,
Yeah.
and that is kind of like, whoa, like, where
Mm-hmm.
where did that come from? And that really takes people off guard. And not that it's important that people know this, that's the reality we live in, and that's what's going on. Jumping straight to that isn't necessarily the best approach.
Yeah. And
You got
actually,
you got to kind
would you say it's even that more important than universal truths? I
of
would
no,
say,
and it oh, absolutely not. And that's what I was going to say, is I realized that that's really not even as important. And you know as far as politics and stuff go, once you introduce these ideas and these truths about natural law and just universal rights, natural rights, um, and people start to understand that stuff, then, and they really, take what you tell them and contemplate it and think about it on their own time, then they'll start to question politics more and kind of wake up to it on their own. I found, because I've been surprised sometimes. Some things that I'll hear come from my parents or grandparents or siblings, like, without me even initiating a conversation. If we're just spending some time together, and then they'll say some stuff that like shocks me. I'm like, oh wow, like I can't believe like
I've gone through that too.
like I like something that I wouldn't expect them to have brought up or said without me bringing up the topic necessarily. So
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful, right?
it is, and it's that definitely is encouraging to me and keeps me going whenever that happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's something that I was wanting to mention that because I could definitely feel Andy's pain when he was talking about, you know, when he tries to talk to his mom or other family members about some of this stuff that um, it can really quickly just turn into arguing
Good
and
points, dude. Good points.
stuff like that. So I found that definitely, and I mean, it's kind of annoying in a way, you know, you don't want to, because especially when, you know, you've spent a long time researching and taking in the knowledge and you know so much, you wish that you just want to tell everybody everything, but you gotta, you know, what's helped me is kind of reflecting back on my awakening and being like, well, you know, I didn't just get it all at once and I didn't go straight
Yeah.
to
Well,
this thing. It
also the
started
fact
out.
we know nothing.
So it's right, exactly. And but my point I was making is thinking back on, you know, my whole waking up process. Um, you know, it was small baby steps. It wasn't like I learned everything all at once, and it was a gradual process, basically, is what I'm saying. And it started with the smaller things, and the things that what really woke me up initially was the universal truths and natural law when I understood this stuff, and then from there, everything else kind of started falling into place and making more sense when I would come across other topics and things.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of trying to keep it simple, I guess,
Right.
to when you're first introducing people to this. And like I said, I know it can be kind of frustrating and annoying because you just want to get right into everything and just want people to get it, but
Well, I'll say this.
it's not that easy, you know. And realistically that's not going to happen with most people.
Yeah, that's it.
Go ahead. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll just say this. My presentation is really made for individuals like us and anybody who really wants to create action. So, I mean, hopefully you guys will like that, and hopefully it may help in some different ways. I cover every single form of action that there can ever be, frankly, when it comes to this matter. And I talked about my individual appeal, and I talk about that as well in this presentation. So if you haven't checked out my video on individual appeal, it'll be in this presentation. So pretty much everything is included in this presentation. So it's like a one-shot, you know, everything. So for anybody that's interested, that would be really good when it comes to guidance for action. And along the points you were mentioning, for sure, man. I mean, they're very, like, that's like right along what we've been saying. And I think, like I said, we're mostly on the same boat here. Because there's always some degree of appeal we have to make to some new individual or some work that has to be done. And we always have to be striving for that work and realize that we frankly don't really know much of anything. And it's good to have that mentality because we're all just living different awarenesses and experiences, and then it makes us more prone to share it and be more open-minded about it. So I want to ask just real quick to conclude, since we're at about, you know, after an hour now, if you don't mind. I think it would just be a good ending point. It's good that we keep these within a limited scope of time just for the sake of listening, right? People listening to it. I want them to also take action within their own life. So what are you guys looking into the in real life clubs that I referred to in our previous meeting? Like going to some real life events, meeting individuals, whether they're Republican, Libertarian, or whatever. Preferably those two in today's day and age. I would prefer you guys look for a Libertarian club near you, only because you'll meet a lot of younger individuals who are very aspiring and ready to create change and who also never get their candidates elected. So, I mean, it's really important that if we can change that party and make it something that they essentially sort of know voluntary principles, if we can sort of bring that through the structure that we have here with Nature's the Answer and natural law, we can really do a lot, because that's what they're missing, is that structure that they can propose to the world. But everything else they have, they're in the political process, they got their websites, they got their candidates, and so forth. So if you just get involved, talk to the people there, create contacts, make some friends, I mean, right? Like that matters, that means a lot. So what do you guys think? Andy, you want to go first? Just like basically, do you plan on going to any in real life clubs? Uh, are you going to do any of that? Because that's really going to help us when it comes to action. Try to make it
I
not
definitely
too
plan
long.
on taking some.
Sorry. I
Yeah,
want to keep
I
these
definitely plan
concise.
on taking action like that. If you could share with me the kind of groups that you've been meeting with, give me a better idea. I know you said you've talked about it a little bit before, but if you could maybe send me some of the stuff you're doing, just to give me an idea, I'm definitely more than willing and ready.
Yeah, well, because you
Just
you
the
were the one
last,
who mentioned like, there's not many people in real life, and this is a way to do it. Even if you have to
right?
make new people in real life, like I had to talk to
Yeah,
individuals there, and they were statist, and now they're not statist anymore. It's just because we're all humans.
right.
We're not looking to just seek out only what's within our echo chamber. When it comes to finding a libertarian club, I would suggest Googling it or going on Facebook, looking for local stuff. I really can't give you a direct link to anything of that, like that. So if
Right.
you could just note it for yourself, like right now, or
Sure.
put it somewhere that you'll see it, that would be really helpful. Because I'm sorry, I just don't really have anything for that. But I will link
Yeah,
you.
No problem.
I will link you We Are Change chapters like I did before. That's probably not likely gonna have as much activity like at all. Some of those groups at We Are Change are probably not really doing anything, but they might. So I'm linking that just in case. And it's always good to know people in the area. So
And then one other thing,
sure.
just want to mention briefly, talked about on a couple of my podcasts, but not sure if you've heard of freedom cells.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
That's okay.
It's in
So
my
that's just
presentation.
something that
Yeah,
okay.
high impact flicks
So
did the same thing. The problem is, like I said, it lacks structure to actually creating mass scale change. It's something independent media
right,
is not.
it's more like an individual.
Yeah, High
Yeah.
Impact Flicks literally did the same exact thing. His is like a mutual support group. You have like, you call people who are in the area and they could help you with any situation. You send them a photo and they're there in minutes. It's cool. It's good. I'm glad they have stuff like that. It's just not going to create any mass scale change. And I'm trying to look at the big picture here. Like, this is what we can do. And if we just had the independent media, guys,
Right.
if we just had the independent media, like we had just that, we'd have millions of individuals already together on the same point, going toward the same direction. And we wouldn't have to deal with all the semantics if we just unified around universal truth, right? Like, we wouldn't have to deal with all these debating and all this useless talk. We can get right to the point with millions of individuals. We'd have great influence just with the independent media. But I think a lot of people are afraid to propose that. Again, like, this collectivist unity sounds weird to people, which is why I'm delivering my content in so many different ways, and why I'm making this big presentation is to show this is necessary. Like, these are requirements. Like Mark Passio puts it, the great work requires numbers. He says this all in his presentation. So this is why I made that presentation, just to be clear. But yeah, I don't mean to plug that. I'm just saying
Is this one you made already?
I made the presentation, but I have to present it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
190 slides. Um, it's really heavily detailed, but I have to present it, and that's going to take a lot of time, like a whole week
Sure.
perhaps. I don't know. I'm going to be killing my voice buds. That's one thing for sure. I'm going to be working. I'm going to be presenting that any chance I can. I'll put my hair up. I'll do something. I want to present that any chance I can, because it's going to take me a lot of time. And I also want to make sure that I'm direct. I don't want to be like, and stuttering a lot. I want to be very direct with it, just for the sake of presentation style. I will do video editing after, so it's just going to take some time. sadly. But that's like all things, especially the greatest things, like my book, which is just going to take forever. So sorry, people on YouTube. You're just going to have to deal with my amazingly lengthy amount of time, even though I work very quickly, by the way. Like, I don't, it's not like I work slow. I write thousands of words a day. It's very difficult because there's so much I have to put into it. It's like, I'm like Mark, I have to make sure everything's a tapestry, you know? Otherwise it's incomplete. But anyways, sorry for me rambling. I'm annoying. So, Mason, you want to go next?
Yeah. So
Am I crazy?
No,
no, not
Okay.
at all.
you're one of the most sane people I know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. That's kidding. Go ahead.
So I've definitely looked into some to see if there's any meetings going on locally. From what I found from the local libertarian group, they don't have any planned meetings or anything like that coming up anytime soon from their according to their website or on their Facebook. Um,
Okay. There might be several Facebooks you have to look at. 'Cause that's what I had to do. Like,
right.
I came into this group and they're new. Like, they just started forming. I'm like, what the heck? And I found them on Facebook, and they're not even on the libertarian websites at all.
Okay.
Yeah, so just you got to look around in multiple different places. And maybe Meetup, you know, is a last resort. Meetup has some stuff. I just don't
Yeah,
really see
I've
anything
checked.
on there.
I've checked Meetup, and whatever I find, it's events that happened like 2 years ago. So there's nothing that's going on
Okay.
right now.
Well, it's good to know that you're looking, right? Like,
But yeah, I mean,
keep looking.
I'm keeping an eye out for sure, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on in terms of that. I guess something else that I could do is maybe look outside of my city, just like see if there's any groups in surrounding areas too.
Right.
'Cause I can, I'd be willing to drive if I had to,
Yeah.
an hour or whatever, however
Search
long.
by county if you can do that.
By
So,
county.
yeah, so like, you know, the counties around you, the ones that are within at least like an hour range, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, just like the county name should work better if you just search by county. So that's just, I guess, a tip. And if anybody who's watching this video has any websites or any good resources, please, please, please link it this way. I will even make videos about it, and I will go there on camera, and it's fun for me. So please give me content. No, anybody who's watching, just or even next stage of evolution, if you have any good resources, I'd appreciate that. Monad, do you have any ideas and plans around this?
I have plans, definitely for connecting with libertarians, and well, honestly, anyone I come across and is receptive, I try to connect with. But in terms of specific groups, I like the idea of connecting with libertarians, and just like you have. But no, I have not started yet. I've been focusing way heavily on other things.
Okay.
So
Yeah, just make sure.
that
I just
time-
want to make
that
sure you
time-
guys. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, it's vital, dude. It's like very necessary. It almost, I think everything becomes so compartmentalized to,
Mhm.
and like it's okay if some people want to stay like only a keyboard warrior. That's fine. But I mean, I do think it's really good to make change in the waking world and
Yeah.
online. So,
And,
but I know I haven't done it yet, but I plan to.
yeah, make content out of it. Make it fun. You know what I mean? Because it's politics. You don't want to sit there bored out of your face or whatever, having them talk about some lengthy constitution of their own, like yay or nay or whatever they had to make me go through. um, you know, videotape it, make some content out of it. People really love that stuff. We Are Change used to do so much stuff like that, and they don't do it anymore. So, you know, a lot of these independent media, they used to have some structures related to change. If they just followed through with it and went all the way with it, they could have done a lot. We Are Change could have done a lot if they
That's
followed
true.
through with that. Like, they had a whole movement for 9/11. They didn't really have a movement, though. I mean, it was We Are Change, right? Which is applicable. And I think it's a great idea. We are change, like we are. But they didn't bring that to the next level. They could have. I think they could have done more with that. They were promoting confrontations, different chapters, which was a great idea. Whoever thought of that? Because then it's like, you know, a fourth political party essentially. And but it didn't really bring anything new to the table, I guess you can say. Confrontations is something like they're known for because it was new, but they never really came with like a structure to bring more individuals because everything just died down after 9/11. Like they just lost all their members, their websites and stuff. It's just, or maybe they're older folks, I'm not sure, but it's just, there needs to be that spirit, and needs to be kept alive, and needs to be going. Like, people don't want to see 9/11 just go by. It wasn't just some ordinary event. It was a big event, and that's why there's so many people who are so passionate about it. So we need to bring that energy back, because if you don't bring the energy back, then you're never going to expect to get the answers that you want, you know? So it's about the energy.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, and I think if we do manage to get a lot of individuals and we are able to influence different, power structures, just think about the amount of whistleblowers that will start to come out. Just think about the amount of information that we would uncover. It would blow the internet on its head. Like, with what we're seeing now is probably nothing in comparison to what's actually out there, but we're not seeing it because we're so stuck up in absorbing information rather than actually transforming anything. So that's why we got to start doing things, and I'm only just mentioning it as a reminder. You guys go at your own pace, of course, do what you got to do. Nobody's forcing you to do anything, and I'm just providing some recommendations of my own, I guess. And everybody here, I think, has some really good interpretations. So what do you guys think we wrap this up?
Sounds good, and I appreciate you facilitating the calls and stuff, and the community in general. So, and thank you again for that video. But yeah, thanks Cory, thanks Andy, thanks Mason,
Thank you
and
guys.
hello Lioness.
Yeah, Linus, welcome, and thank you all.
Yeah,
Peace
thanks,
out.
guys.
Take care.